There we go. Okay, I'm gonna start here and we'll just jump right in.
Perfect.
Hey everyone, welcome to Backstage Pass with Phoenix. I have a very special guest on today, and we've been so excited. Everyone at the studio also has been excited about this. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Disney! We're talking about Disney." Disney Imagineer here with us today, Josh Steadman. But let me give you a little intro to him because he's not only a former Disney engineer or Imagineer, sorry, Imagineer.
That's kind
Uh,
of close.
yeah, kind of close. But also, let me give you this extensive bio, just a snippet of this extensive bio. Okay, so he's also worked on a lot of fun projects, including Shanghai Disneyland. Okay, so in Shanghai Disneyland, Marvel Avengers Station in Las Vegas, Singapore Cartoon Network's The Wave Cruise Ship, Evermore Park in Pleasant Grove. He's as a director of show design and production, creative director on Genting Skyworlds and a ride design illustrator at Warner Brothers Park Abu Dhabi. And he's also talked about a few other projects that he's worked on since then. Just building theme parks is his thing, which is sounds like the most fun job ever.
It can be fun.
It can be. Well, thanks
Yeah,
so much, Josh, for
you're
being
welcome.
here.
Yeah, it's a
Love the
pleasure.
idea.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So Disney, former Disney Imagineer. That
Sure.
sounds pretty epic. How did all of this come about? Like
Oh
you
boy.
designing parks. Like where did that come from?
Well, I get that question asked quite a bit, and funny enough, I actually grew up in Jerome, Idaho, long, 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 long time ago.
Wow.
And yeah, little Jerome. And when I lived in Jerome, there was one stoplight and a lot of cows. And I've said this before on other podcasts and different things. There was probably more cows than there were people in Jerome at the time. But we grew up with the Disney Channel, and we were country kids and would watch the Disney Channel. The Disney Channel had little snippets of Imagineering, and they would show different things that they were working on, expanding on. And I remember seeing there were two that were distinct. Typhoon Lagoon, the creation of Typhoon Lagoon, which is a water park in Orlando next to Magic Kingdom. It's actually next to Disney Springs, not far away from there. And if you know the layout of the land in Florida at the Florida theme parks, and I remember watching that one and the making of the Tower of Terror, which they showed. Kirk Cameron hosted it. And I remember you could still actually find it on YouTube. And was talking about the making of Tower of Terror. I was in high school at the time, junior high school, and being very distinctly going, that's something I want to do. It actually goes. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. It goes even before that. We went to Disneyland when I was 6, and I remember distinctly going and thinking at 6, 7 years old, like this is the coolest place. Obviously, there's people who work here, and there's people who somewhere designed this thing. I remember thinking that very distinctly and going, that's what I want to do when I grow up.
Wow.
Fifth and sixth grade, teachers would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? You've got to write an essay or something. And I had a teacher in sixth grade asked me to write an essay. It was all about becoming a theme park designer. I didn't know that they were called Imagineers, aside from watching the Disney Channel. And then years later, when I was watching those shows that I was just telling you about, then it became more real, like real, and could be something that could be realized to become an Imagineer. So the story is, and it's a true story. I actually went to Rick's College. It used to be called Rick's. It's still OG Rick's for me. Some people now call it BYU Idaho. It's not BYU Idaho. I'm sorry. It's
It's
just
fine.
always going to be Rick's College. And I studied under a really well-known wildlife illustrator named Leon Parson and a few other people, Jeff Carter, and Kelly Bergner, and those guys in 1995 were like, Josh, if that's what you want to do, you should really actually do it. Don't just talk about it. And Leon, if anyone who listens to this radio interview knows Leon Parson, Leon's the type of guy who's just like, just do it. Don't make excuses, do the job. If that's something you're going to do, just do it. And so I did. Actually submitted my work to Art Center. College of Design in Pasadena, California. Got a mini scholarship, mini because it's a very expensive art school, and moved to LA. This would have been 1998, 98, I believe, 98 or 99, after getting my associates, and was waiting tables at Johnny Rockets in Los Angeles, trying to save money to go to art center. Well, art centers like house mortgage payment. I mean, like to buy a house, it's so expensive, and it just was not realistic. So I had applied also to BYU Provo, and I instead went to BYU Provo. They offered me a full ride art scholarship, which is amazing. And my whole thing going to Provo was if I was going to not go to an art school in Los Angeles where the industry was located, then I was going to do my own thing at BYU,
Yeah.
which was study illustration. I was in the illustration program. There were only 20 of us that are accepted. Still is the same, 20 students. You have to submit a portfolio, and it's very selective, and
Right.
you're admitted into that program. And so I went into the illustration program, studied under some more amazing professors and mentors. Um, and in doing that, I created my own program, loosely created my own program in themed entertainment design, which no
Wow.
one had done. It was not a discussion. And nowadays, in education systems in the United States, there's themed entertainment programs, places like Florida State. Savannah College of Art and Design, Ringling School of Design. They have programs in themed entertainment, which I'm so jealous because I didn't know what I was doing. I was making things up and just kind of writing a loose curriculum to allow myself to build a portfolio so that I could be seen and to apply to jobs in LA. So that would have been, I finished BYU 2002, actually walked and received my degree in 2003. It's a long, long story after that, but that was the beginnings of me realizing this crazy goal and this crazy dream.
I love that you had this
Mm,
dream as a kid. And
yeah.
so many of us draw those pictures of like, this is what I want to become. And for some reason, when we get older, there's like some time in our lives that we stop believing that that can be a reality. We think
I'll
it's
tell
too
you what that is.
far-fetched.
I'll tell
What
you
is
what
it?
that
Yeah,
is.
tell us, please.
It's called adulthood. I mean,
Yes.
to be honest, it's like,
Yeah.
reality hits and
Yeah.
people have kids and you have bills to pay. And I mean, I can only speak for myself. I don't come from a trust fund background. So if I
You
did, it
don't?
would be
Oh, well.
easy to do that. No, no, no. I'm a normal Idahoan kid from Idaho, man.
Thank
So
goodness.
yeah. The reality is 90% of humanity doesn't have those deep pockets,
Right.
and I didn't. So, my parents worked really, really hard and they supported six kids. And
Oh, good.
so I'm really grateful to that because it gave me all the implications and education to work my butt off. And hard work equates dream fulfilling in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. In my
Yeah.
book, it does. It also helps to have a little bit of luck on your side, but I
Uh-huh.
think tenacity is that word is an
Perfect.
amazing thing. Hope
Hmm.
and tenacity. I mean,
Oh,
put people on the right path.
hope and tenacity. I have so many questions. We're gonna have to take a break in just a second, but I
Sure.
do want to ask, like, what was your reaction when, like, I don't know if they like send you
I
a
know
letter
you're
or they call you. I just imagine them being like, "You're gonna be a Disney Imagineer," and I just realized, I don't know if it's really like that, but when you realized that you're going to be a Disney Imagineer, was that like the ultimate moment, or was it
It's a
like,
whole story. No, no,
okay,
no. It's a crazy, crazy, crazy story.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to take a break and I'll tell you the
Yeah.
rest
Well,
of
why don't
that.
we take a break
We'll
and then
leave
we'll
it on a
come back and
cliffhanger.
your cliffhanger. Okay. So keep
Okay.
listening because when we come back to Backstage Pass, we're going to hear the deets on how he became a
Oh,
Disney
indeed.
Imagineer on
Yeah.
Backstage Pass with Phoenix.
There you go.
Okay, we're back. We're back here with Josh
Yay.
Steadman, and I've been holding my breath because I want to know. Like you said, it was a whole story. It wasn't like they called you up and they were like, "Guess what? You are our next Disney Imagineer."
Oh, no, no, no. It's
That's
not
in
like
my mind
American
how it
Idol
goes. Yeah.
or
How did
America's
how
Got Talent or something like that.
how did you realize that you were going to be that, or what was that moment
Gosh.
like?
Okay, well, I'm going to try and be very positive in how I tell this story because it was really hard.
Okay.
Um, I had a situation where my portfolio at BYU was plagiarized, and I'm not going to go into detail.
Oh
The
no.
person who plagiarized it used it to get a job at the Disney company at Walt Disney Imagineering, and that was in 2003. Yes, it's a true story. And it was horrible and it was emotionally destructive for me. What it did do because of that is I answered an ad in the local student newspaper, the Daily Universe, and it was to literally go work with recovering addicts in the desert in Lehi, Utah. And I was destitute. I was sad because I had found out that my work had been ripped off. I didn't know what to do. And so I answered that ad and I ended up working for a very, very, very long time with students that were recovering from abusive situations, whether it was self-abuse or something else. And it was a game changer. I wasn't looking for that job. It kind of found me and it was epic in all the ways possible. And it's funny because in Utah and other parts of the West, there's been this weird narrative because there has been, people who have passed on the trail or kids that have gone through things and a lot of kids, and there's a Netflix show. But I will tell you my experience for 18 years part-time working with troubled youth was amazing. And life trends. I mean, I helped put people on the right path, but for me, it gave me so much emotional stability, which funny enough, I look back and I think about how my work was plagiarized, how I found that job. It also allowed me to draw around the campfire, talking to kids, telling life stories and teaching lessons and reading books and things like that because you have a lot of downtime when you don't have cell phones and you're living like the Lost Boys in
Hmm.
the middle of nowhere, Lehi,
Hmm.
Utah, the West Desert. And so I vehemently decided that I was gonna put my work together and that people were gonna see my work no matter what, come hell or high water. And the story is I got my younger brother Luke Steadman, who's also a theme park designer. He's a theme park designer in the theme park industry, and then two of my really good friends. I got them involved in designing a submission to Walt Disney Imagineering's contest that they used to have. And so fast forward 2 years later, we had put this whole thing together, and I was teaching high school art, and I got a call that the portfolio had become a finalist, and it was an attraction design based on my favorite film of all time, The Rocketeer, which is a Disney property. We had to design a ride based on a Disney subject, on Disney IP. Me and my brother were disqualified for two reasons. First of all, I had already had a degree, and you couldn't just enter and already have finished school. But
Oh.
what the competition did know is I had put myself back into schools to be an undergrad again at Weber State, which is ridiculous, but to submit for that contest and to be a part of the contest entry. They also said over the phone that the work was too good and and too professional. They thought we had cheated. Um, and I
Hmm.
will tell you, my work was good. My brother's work was amazing because he's a technical artist and very, very, very tight renders, stuff like that. But I put together the whole portfolio. It looked like an old Rocketeer comic book from the 1930s. Anyway, long story short, we were disqualified. And all it did was make me work even harder to
Dang.
realize this crazy dream. After a year of teaching high school in Salt Lake, I packed up my Buick Century, 93 Buick Century, which was the Frankenstein of all Frankenstein cars, and loaded up everything I needed just to survive and moved it to LA. I couch surfed with a friend, but um, landed an internship with a company called ThinkWell when they were pretty much a startup. There were 12 people working full time at that company. Um, because the Disney dream, I had to let it go. It just was too much and it was too painful. It
Hmm.
hurt too much to just know that that I couldn't go there and that I couldn't work there. By the way, the person to tell me we were disqualified was the young lady that stole my work 2 years previous. That's
No,
a true
of
story.
course.
Yes.
Okay, this is
Uh,
getting juicy.
no, 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 it's way juicy and it makes for good radio entertainment, right? So, anyway, so
The
I took
pain.
my portfolio and peddled it, landed that internship. I was introduced. This is where you and I were talking offline before, where I met the right people. I met a couple named the Kirks, Kathy and Steve, and then their brother Tim Kirk. Kathy and Steve were married. They were the lead creative designers and creative directors on Tokyo Disney Sea, which is a brand new opened park. So to me, they were like gods of design. I mean, these
Yeah.
people, and they still are, and the team that worked around that project. They referred me to ThinkWell, so I went in, got an interview, landed an internship, and actually landed freelance with them first for a year in 2005, and then moved back to Salt Lake after living in LA, driving up to do freelance to ThinkWell, sleeping in the parking lot in my car and showering at the 24-hour fitness. And I did that for almost a year. Also got a job selling tickets at Disneyland's 50th anniversary at Front Gate. So I was doing this pseudo internship freelance gig working at Disneyland and just kind of making my way. Went back to Utah to save because I realized I needed to go to graduate school. And this is one thing you were asking, Liana, like, what is the greatest lesson I have learned in this industry? And I would say be educated, get education. I cannot emphasize it enough. I am an adjunct professor now. The people that trained me at Rick's College and the people that taught me at BYU and the people that taught me in grad school at University of California, Irvine and UC Davis, because I transferred there to get my master's degree as a set designer, in person changed my life. It was transformative because I had mentors that guided me because I couldn't do it on my own.
Hmm.
And, you know, if you've watched The Karate Kid, you grew up in The Karate Kid, and he's using that as an example, or Kung Fu Panda, where there's a Master Uguay or there's a Mr. Miyagi. I truly believe and live and die by the principle that you have to be mentored. You have to be trained. If you want to be a great and a master of something, you have to have a master train you. Like you can't just, yeah, you can do it in your garage. You can do it that way. And you can self-teach. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is something incredibly amazing about humility, being humble to be taught. That's the first thing, which requires you to be taught. You can't just do it on your own without someone training you first. And so I was trained by all these Mr. Miyagi's and Master Uwais that changed my life. And what's funny now in this story, I haven't even gotten to the part where Disney called me, but I am now a Master Uguay. I believe I see myself that way, which is
Yeah, we
maybe,
do too.
yeah,
Just a
yeah.
very young looking Master
I'm
Guai.
levitating peaches and
Yes,
oranges.
exactly.
No, but like it's been a thing for me to give back
Hmm.
in all the ways of which I was trained.
Hmm.
So we'll end the podcast later on with that.
Yeah.
But what had happened is I got my master's degree. I studied under a famous production designer in LA and Hollywood named John Yacovelli, who was Emmy Award winning, nominated for Academy Awards, all sorts of stuff. Designed multiple television shows and designed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with Joe Johnston and a bunch of other things. And he trained me one-on-one for 3 years and then got me on television and put me as an intern on Lincoln Heights, which was an ABC afternoon show in LA. We were on the Fox slot. And I worked with a very famous past actor, Chadwick Boswick. He was the boyfriend on that show. I used to eat lunch with that guy as if it was no big deal.
Hmm.
And I didn't know. I didn't know he was going to become Black Panther and have this amazing career. I mean, that's an example of leaving a place like Idaho or leaving a place like Utah and cutting your teeth in a real industry setting that is out of those bubbles because you end up meeting these incredibly talented people that the world ends up knowing and falling in love with. And that was what happened. I worked on that show, and then John referred me again to Wipeout on ABC, which was the Americanized version of Takeshi's Castle, which is a huge game show where you basically these contestants get beaten up in all sorts of weird gauntlets with red balls and different things. So
Hmm.
I worked on that show for 6 seasons, which is roughly almost the equivalent of 5 years. Production designing, illustrating, and working with ABC Family. From then, and that point, I was introduced by my friend Nina Raybon to the executive creative director and president of Walt Disney Imagineering on a whim. I
Hmm.
wasn't looking for it.
Hmm.
She was like, Josh, you should really just talk to my buddy Bruce. I didn't know it was Bruce Vaughn, who's now currently also the president of Walt Disney Imagineering. And Bruce spent all day with me on campus, took me around, showed me Walt Disney Imagineering. And at the time, I was like, first of all, it was a little unreal. Second of all, I had worked so hard that I was like, yeah, I deserve this. This is freaking awesome. I worked my
Hmm.
butt off to be here.
Yeah.
Um, and so they offered me a job to work on the castle, and they introduced me to Doris Hardoon, who is now a Disney legend, and she's on, Disney Plus all the time. She's been on several shows, you know,
Wow.
uh, Behind the Attraction and the Imagineering story. I'm actually in the Imagineering story with her in episode 6
Ooh.
on that show on Disney Plus, standing there. I don't say a word, but I am next to Doris, who's like my second mom, honestly. And and it went from there.
Wow.
So
So
I
it's like a
must say,
process, but you were like, oh, this is turning into
I
my.
was 35,
Hmm.
almost 36 by the time Disney called me. I had watched friends land jobs, especially in Utah, where in Idaho, where I can only say this culturally because I think listeners might understand. That is, you know, roommates getting married at the age of 21 and buying homes and having kids and
Right.
buying cars. I didn't have any of that because I was hustling to get this dream to come true.
Hmm.
But you have to understand that if you're going to be committed to that type of hustle, you're going to experience a lot of pain,
Hmm.
and it's called poverty. And I don't think people understand. And not to
Right.
say that you're not going to experience that as a father or, as a newlywed or something like that. I think it taught me a lot. Number one, about perseverance. Number two, about failure. You can't be successful without failure. And I
Hmm.
think young people today, and I say this on a radio show, so hopefully people are listening. Failure is the only way.
Hmm.
Um, you fail upwards, not downwards. You fail up. You trip up. It's not about success. And I would say the generation, the Gen Z kids I teach, I tell them that. I'm like, get ready to fail.
Hmm.
Embrace it. Be a failure because you'll learn more from failing than you ever will from, winning the lottery of
Hmm.
life. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. Disney, going back to my time at Walt Disney Imagineering, was extremely difficult. I didn't realize when I got the job, actually, when I got the letter of employment, I fell on my knees and I just bawled my eyes out because this 20 year at the time, less than that, path was so hard. I have it framed, by the way, that letter, and I have it hanging in my office. And it's a good reminder, of hard work, accomplishment means something. It means something to
Yeah.
me, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was with Disney for just 5 years. I worked on Shanghai Disneyland. I was the production designer of the world's largest Disney castle.
Ooh.
which people don't understand that castle is a land. So if you take something like Adventureland or Tomorrowland, just pick a land in any Disney park and put it in a building, that was the equivalent of what we were working on. It is a land. And you go to
Wow.
Shanghai and you see it, it's intense.
I am, yeah, that I'm super excited because it's like the largest castle, right? Or something.
It's
Um,
so, yes, it's
well,
not a competitor right now
I
in
do
Hong
want
Kong.
to get into that a little bit more, but we do have to
Sure.
take a quick break.
Okay.
And I loved all like the whole story of like the perseverance, and that's how you ended up landing it. I mean, and you never know when those dreams will be realized, so just don't stop. I love that. We're gonna take a quick break, but a little teaser. He's going to tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes of working on the Disney Castle in Shanghai, and also a little bit of advice for you if you're wanting to get into this kind of career. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back here on Backstage Pass with Phoenix. Okay, these other two segments might be, this will drop out at 40. So we'll just
Hmm.
keep that in mind. I think we're at 26 right now. So we
Okay.
just have to split the time for two more segments. Okay, right, here we go. Okay, we are so eager to hear Josh Steadman. He's here with us talking about the behind the scenes of Disney parks. And he just in the last segment, if you didn't catch it, talked about how he made his way to become a Disney Imagineer and ended up working on the largest castle, the Disney Shanghai Castle, right? And you
Yep.
were saying that it's a separate world, right? It's its own
Well,
world inside of it.
I'm saying that if you go to any Disney park and you understand layout of a park, right? It's basically a whole land in one building.
Hmm.
So it's just vertical, right? Uh,
Wow. I
it's a
actually have never
huge
been. I've
building.
never been. I've never been to Shanghai. But yeah, we want to hear like what was it like working on that? What is give us all the behind the scenes of that.
Sure. First of all, we spent 2 years. I spent 2 years in Glendale, working on a walkthrough, the Snow White walkthrough that's inside of it. That was my main assignment, was to conceptualize that and then build a full-scale realized mock-up of that attraction. Disney goes to great lengths to prove out their attractions and to make sure things like new effects, special effects are proven to work and that they'll work over and over and over and over and
Hmm.
over again because a ride or an attraction exists for a very long, long time. And I think what most people don't understand is that Disney parks, any theme park, is a realization of a village, if not a city, of human beings. There are so many people that work on a Disney park. It's a little bit tragic. I'm trying to, maybe that's not the right word. There are people that get a lot of notoriety, working on theme parks, and everyone knows who they are. They know them by name. What they don't realize is there are all these people supporting those folks to make things happen. A lot of incredibly educated, talented people. So, places like Disney, places like Universal, and this is my preach on education, they're all educated. In other words, they all have degrees. They
Hmm.
have worked really, really hard to be there. And honestly, they deserve to be there
Hmm.
because they have worked so hard. And so you're working with some of the greatest talented
Yeah.
minds behind themed entertainment, but also behind entertainment in general. And I think I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but for 2 years, we spent so much time proving
Well,
out this attraction that's inside that castle.
and you said that you conceptualized it. Tell us what that means. Like for you, are you drawing? Are you thinking like what
Yes.
does even conceptualizing mean for you?
Well, so when I met with Doris the very first time, she goes, your assignment is going to be to design an attraction inside the castle. It is your baby. You have to own it and you have to take it from the ether and make it real. And so, man, I owned it as best as I could emotionally and mentally. And we designed a walkthrough attraction that had to have so much throughput. So you have to have people, guests, be interested to walk inside a castle, go up 86 steps or 82 steps. I don't even remember how many steps we had at the time, and experience this thing that needs to eat up 10 to 15 minutes of time of someone's journey in a theme park. And so
So what kind of like stipulations do they give you? Do they say we
you
need
have
this
so
many
much
people,
width.
you have this
Yeah.
much with, and then we want to walk through And so are you the one saying, okay, is it going to be I'm incorporating all the things of Snow White? Do you have to like research Snow White and then
Well,
say, I'm going to put the seven dwarves here? Or is it mostly like mathematical stuff that you're having to
there's
design?
some mathematical stuff, and luckily there are people who work in operations, theme park operations, that know those theories, the math theories and the equations of how many people need to come through, what's the size and the footprint. Those are things that I had to own and really study and understand. Um, I will tell you that the building had already been designed by the architects. So I worked with Coulter Winn, who's an incredible, famous, very well-known architect at Walt Disney Imagineering, and he and I sat side by side and worked out the ground plan of how this walkthrough would work, and how it would fit in architecture. And so think of like a giant wedding cake. Okay. You have a wedding cake. It's already made. The
Mhm.
icing's cooling,
Okay.
whatever you want to call it. It's curing on the
Okay.
cake. And all of a sudden someone goes, okay, now we have to hollow it out. We need to put something inside, and people need to, like, let's just say things need to go up inside of it, and it needs to do this thing. And
Hmm.
and the architect is like, are you kidding me? There's no space for that. And so what we had a third floor that was empty, and we were trying to put something in it. I had ceiling heights that at the highest point were 9 feet, lowest
Wow.
point were like 7.5 feet, walls that came in, and we had 4.5 feet, which is okay. You can deal with that with walkthroughs. Um, and I had to design scenery or conceptualize scenery, storyboard it. I worked with Pam Fisher, who was the writer on the attraction. She's now since retired, but very incredibly talented woman. And same with Doris. And it was me, Doris, Pam, and Angel Barron, who was the show set designer, who is basically taking all these thoughts and ideas and compiling them and putting them in AutoCAD, so that we had drafting blueprints to be able to realize the vision of this walkthrough. We spent 2 years doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, I was also the production designer on the largest park within a park. It's
Hmm.
funny. I'm going to throw some shade. Universal just said that they have the park within the park opening an Epic Universe. They're not the first. We did it, Gardens of Imagination, and that was part and parcel, verbatim, the announcement we made when we announced Gardens of Imagination at Shanghai Disneyland. This is the
Wow.
very first park within a theme park. I mean, modern park within a theme park.
Yeah.
So, and Gardens of Imagination was 7.5 acres. Two round rides. We have Dumbo. We had Fantasia Carousel, which was a unique designed carousel based off the movie Fantasia. We had sculptures, we had mosaics, art mosaics and art glass that represented the 12 mosaic zodiac for that park, that we used Disney characters as the 12 mosaics. Chinese New Year is coming up. If you understand, astrology and the lunar calendar, then you know what I'm talking about. But then we also had bodies of water. We had Wi-Fi towers that needed to be cladded, that needed to look like they belonged in a very beautiful Beaux-Arts style garden area. So I was working on that, working on the castle, and then I also was put on Mickey Avenue, which is the equivalent of Main Street USA, designing things like weather vanes, designing cashbacks. So where a register sits in a gift shop, what's behind it? What's the show? What does it look like? For Goofy's Toy Shop, and I mean, it was so much. And then the castle, I had to help with the mosaic installs, art glass. I supported the art director, supported the restaurant design with David Bricky and his team that was interior designers. It was an epic amount of work, and I had 3 of 6 lands that I was a production designer for in that entire park, which is a lot.
Hmm.
Most people, when they're building theme parks, most production designers get one land because
Hmm.
that's enough.
Hmm.
And one land is usually 16 to 20 acres.
Wow.
So I had roughly 60 acres of scope in that park that I had to design or see and support the design for. So I was assisting the art director. I was not an art director at the time, but became an assistant art director working on that park. And it was incredibly stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were living in China. China alone was incredibly
Stressful.
stressful. We would go to restaurants and stuff, and the locals would be like, "Oh, who are you guys? What are you doing?" And we're like, "We're theme park designers. We're Walt Disney Imagineers." and it would be glassy blank stares. They had no clue what that meant
Wow.
because Disney was not part of China. There was no culture, built-in
Mm-hmm.
culture. Now it's huge.
Yeah,
So
that's so
being an
amazing.
Imagineer is kind of like silent notoriety in a
Yeah,
place like that
right.
in the wild, wild west of
Yeah,
China at the time, because no one knew what we were doing and knew who we were.
yeah.
Nowadays, you go there and everyone's like, "Ah," so that was not the
Well,
case.
we only have a few minutes left. I do want to get to our last little segment. So I could ask you behind the scenes day, of this all day, but we're
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
take a quick break and we're going to wrap up with just the last few minutes that we have here. When we come back here on Backstage Pass with Phoenix. Okay, we only have like 4 minutes. So let me just jump in. We'll ask the
sure.
question. Okay. I'm so sad that we only have a little bit of time with Josh left. We've had so much fun with you, but I did want to ask. This show is also about helping others become influencers themselves, and you've had so much influence on people through the Disney parks, through your design, and through media. So, how have you seen what you do influence others for good?
First of all, theme parks are awesome, and they're awesome because it's a
Yes,
community experience. So
true.
much like going and buying a ticket to see a Broadway musical or sitting in a theater, a space, and the lights go down and the house lights go down, and then the show lights come up and the performers come out. Theater is a communal and community experience, and I think theme parks are the same because that's where they got their start, was in theater. Um, I think they're meant to make people happy, and I don't think it's a place for political division. I don't think it's a place for human division. It's a place for people to forget what they're dealing with on the day to day and lose themselves somewhere else. It's a tangible alternate reality, and that's the purpose. The purpose is escapism.
Hmm.
So my hope and my advice to anyone wanting to get into this industry is lose yourself in the entertainment sauce. Become a good designer, study the arts, know them. You're only as good as your research. So you can't make it up. You got to know it, and you got to know it frontwards, backwards, sideways. You got to be good at it. And ultimately, it's about making people happy. So if it's not making you happy, don't do it. That's the other thing. You've got to find your happiness in it. And it's about making people happy. The end. That's it. That's all there is to
Love that. Oh, I have so many other questions, but I love ending on
it.
that note. I'm like, oh gosh, we're running out of time. Um, Thank you so much. And I think that
Sure.
that is such a beautiful message to leave on. Like all of this, everything that we do in the entertainment industry, in the media industry, is to uplift others. It really is. I mean, that's what we can use media for. That's what we can use our talents for. So thank you so much. If people want to follow you, get ask more questions, where can they go to find you?
So I have a website. You can go to www.steadmanstyles, Steadman styles, styles.com. And you can shoot me an email there.
Okay, Steadman Style. So shoot him an email.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for joining us, for sharing the
you're
behind the
welcome.
scenes of Disney, and also, more importantly, your journey on getting there, because I think we learned so much from that. And also, thank you guys for joining this. Remember that, I mean, we talked beforehand that if you're watching this on YouTube, he's not really, does not really look like an Oompa Loompa. He's a little orange. I'm a little white. So.
Seriously, I look like I'm running for president. Like this is bad. And it's the stupid video camera, but whatever,
Oh,
technology.
it's so great. And if you want to come see us, then jump onto YouTube. You can find the show on YouTube. You can find it on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can download the Star 98 Radio app or find us on star98radio.com. And of course, you can join us every weekend on Backstage Pass on Star 98, 7 to 8 p.m. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
we'll enjoy, we'll have you join us next time on Backstage
Yeah,
Pass with Phoenix.
absolutely.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Joss. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is gonna drop out in just like less than a minute, but that was super awesome. And I I'm sorry I couldn't ask all my questions, but I
I'm
had
sorry to
so
talk
many.
so much.
No, it was really great, and I learned a lot. And I was like, oh, there's a million things I could ask you, but I appreciate your time. I know that you have to jump out, and I
Yeah.
wish you the best of luck on your call with Dubai.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's my gosh, it's gonna be stressful. It's a long thing. It's a
oh
whole
no.
nother thing. So, but
Oh, and we
it's
didn't even get to Six Flags. Oh, well,
yeah, it's okay. It's
okay.
all right.
Well, I
Let me
hope we
know when when you edit it or whatever. I would love to hear it, and then I'll be listening to the show this weekend.
sweet. I will send it over to you. So thanks so
That'd be
much,
great.
Josh. You have a
All
good
right,
day.
Carol.
Okay, we'll see
See
ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye.